Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Brandanda Reviews. My name is Brandon.
I'm Miranda.
And this is Brandanda Reviews, as I said and as she sang. If you're new to us, what we do is we take an album and we tell you what they did good, what they did bad, what our favorite songs were, or song, maybe the whole album.
It's supposed to be song, but
yeah.
I have changed the rule.
As well as our thoughts on the album. Today we are reviewing one of, if not the most popular Christian albums of all time. And we're talking about Jesus Freak by DC Talk. It was the fourth studio album. It was released November 21st, 1995. So we're going to be coming up on 25th year anniversary coming up later this year. Which is crazy to think how old this is.
What year were you born?
1992.
Oh, okay.
So I was just a little baby when they were writing this album.
I was -3. He was 3.
It peaked at number 16 on the Billboard 200, and 6 of the album's 7 singles reached number 1 across various Christian radio formats, and also won the 1997 Grammy Award for Best Rock Gospel Album. And a little bit of, I don't know if trivia or if it'd be like a little story, but one of the professors I had, Dr. Pearson, he ran a Christian music magazine back in the day. And he actually gave me a copy of one where he did an interview with Kevin Max, and it was while they were writing Jesus Freak. And so in the interview, Kevin Max even says, like, hey, I'm sorry that, like, I'm getting to you late. Like, we were up late last night, like, recording our new album's coming out. But in the interview, Kevin Max talks about how, like, back in the day with, like, Mozart and Beethoven, whenever people released music, they were wanting to change the whole landscape of music. Whereas nowadays, people just think, well, what's popular? Let me put that out. Or, well, I need some more money. Or, well, I need to do my third album on my contract.
Yeah.
And, I just thought it was really cool in that interview that he's talking about how, man, it's a shame that people don't put stuff out that's going to just change everything.
Yeah.
And then they end up putting out this album, and there's just so many Christian artists that point back to Jesus Freak being the album that either started giving them offers or that, you know, they were young and they started hearing this thinking, man, this is cool. This is different from what I've grown up on.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really cool piece of trivia. It's probably, the magazine itself is probably one of, if not my favorite, like, pieces of, like, music memorabilia that I have.
Yeah.
But we'll go ahead and jump into this. As far as good, I put blending styles. I think it's more apparent after, like, they went on hiatus and you've just seen what Toby Mac, Michael Tate, and Kevin Max have done. Where, like, Toby Mac over here just saying, like, hey, I can go on stage and sing pop rock, like, and rap.
Yeah.
And then Michael Tate, he did the solo stuff, but also I think he's more well-known now with, like, Newsboys, having more of, like, a conservative feel, but still, like, wildly popular.
Yeah.
And then Kevin Max is over here being like, I'm going to sing songs from the 30s. I'm going to sing songs about exorcism. So, like, it's just crazy that if you didn't know DC Talk was a thing and you tried to lump these three together, people would be like, that's not going to work. But this album just shows how when you have people that are very different, how it comes together and makes something really well. Thought-provoking lyrics, you know, it's crazy when you listen to something like this versus other stuff that's, like, more popular now, and you're like, oh, that's very tame, like, compared to, like, this album. And then also, thirdly, I didn't write it in here, but this album, I think it's hard for someone to, like, date this album. Because I was thinking this is an album that I could see having been released in the 2000s. Or even 2010s. Or even like today. And I think that was cool that you may disagree. Your viewers might disagree. But I didn't really see this as, yep, this is a 90s album. I definitely know that. Because of the sound and the lyrics. It was more of, that's cool when you can put something out. And you don't just date it of, well, you'd understand if you were in the 90s. So
yeah. Pretty much for every category I wrote defined a generation because I really think that it did. And also, like, talking about, like, the times that the time it sounds that it came out, like, I don't know. My dad, I grew up, like, listening to a lot of, like, 80s music and maybe, like, 70s music, and even, like, the rock then, like, this just sounds like a more refined version of the rock then. So I could, you know, date it even to like the 80s or the 70s. And I think that like it really just proves that it is timeless, and like it can be just an amazing album for every era that like it sounds like it could be part of. Another thing I like about it is that Free at Last is another album that I was like raised on and stuff. And I mean, there are like, you know, bits and pieces of that sounds like Jesus Freak, but it's just so different.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane that DC Talk did that, like, and didn't, you know, like, Taylor Swift did a bunch of, like, country albums, but half of them sounded pop, and then she did 1989 and it was pop.
Yeah.
And, like, people were like, oh my gosh, she changed genres. But, like, DC Talk literally did a full rap album that was just, like, some of it was hokey and some of it was, like, legit.
Yeah.
And then they did this, like, rock album that just defined a generation, and it's just insane that like they were able to do that, and they did it so well, like that they have that much talent that they are able to like fit into these genres. So yeah, it defined a generation.
As far as the bad for me, the only thing that stood out to me that was like, oh, where did that come from, was like the poem at the end, like by Kevin Max. And like now, like I know that, like, you know, when you look back, it's not like they're like, how did that end up on there? You know, that was planned.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's people at home that would either be like, no, that was the best part, or there's people being like, oh, well, Brandon, you're missing the other 1,000 things wrong with this, you know, album or whatever.
Yeah.
But just when I was going through it, that was really the only thing that I could like nitpick. And that's something I try to do on here, because like I said, I've said in other past reviews that, like, I hate when someone's like, nope, there's nothing bad on this. I'm like, nope, there's always something that could be changed. But, like, when I really just look over the album, that's the only thing that stands out. And I don't know. Like, I don't know if you maybe could have put it somewhere else on the album. Or maybe just...
not have it on there.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess the only other thing maybe is, like I was okay with the interludes, but I think that the Jesus Freak reprise for some people, it's because, you know, they're trying to be like, oh, here's this cheesy pastor, you know, singing it. But I think that for some people, it might catch them off guard thinking like, what? Or if you took it out of context, you're like, what are they trying, like, what are they trying to do with it? So maybe just those two tracks are the only things that kind of verge on. It leaves me wondering, well, is the album the same without them, or do they need to stay there?
Yeah, I think as a like Christian album review brand, we cannot in good conscience say anything bad about this album. But I do, I don't know. I think that like it's just so good. Like even what's the song? What If I Stumble? Like, that could be so hokey. And, like, some of the lyrics are so hokey, and you listen to it, and you're like, oh, that's funny. But, like, still, it's, like, it rings so true. And, like, even Jesus Freak, like, that could just be a dumb song where, like, it could be on level of Jesus is a Friend of Mine, and yet it defined a generation.
Yeah.
Like, it could have been so much worse, and yet it's the best thing. So I really appreciate it for that. I think maybe the one thing that I would say is that it's very top heavy. Like, I feel like the best songs are, I mean, and not even like in the first half, because it's like, I think Between You and Me is like the last like great song, and then the rest like kind of falls shorter than the ones before it, but still like they're all great. I just think that, like, you know, maybe it could have evened out with like all the songs being on that level. But what can you do to measure up to Jesus Freak?
As far as like favorite songs, Jesus Freak is just a song that like it stands out to me. And what's crazy about it is like I didn't even know DC Talk existed when I first got into Toby Mac, and then like I started seeing people were like, yeah, he used to be in this band DC Talk. And I was like, oh, what do they sing? And then I heard like I said, I went from like Gone and like being like, okay. And I was just starting to kind of get into rap. Then I started like, I was like, oh, Jesus Freak, let me listen to that. And I was like, whoa, what? Like, this is what's going on here. And then I got into DC Talk and I was like, oh, this is cool too, because this is seeing Toby Mac, and it's not just Toby saying, yep, I'm the boss, what do I want to put out? It's him saying, all right, I'm a third of this,
Yeah.
It's, so even in this album, you can see his ideas being pulled back or whatever a little bit. But yeah, Jesus Freak and then Day by Day, I've always loved, like their version of it on here. And also, fun fact, Goatee Records released in 2005 a 10-year anniversary of the album called Freaked, and House of Heroes does a version of Day by Day. And it
You don't need to tell
really,
me.
really good. That whole album is really cool, because I love whenever someone says, here's someone else's, like, here's an album, put your own spin on it. How
Yeah.
do you do it?
But I think it's even cooler because it's Toby Mac's record
Yeah.
company that's producing that.
But yeah, those were my two favorite songs off the album.
So I was gonna say that I've always loved Day by Day because, first of all, it's from Godspell and musicals. I love musicals, so it's just in my alley. But also, I loved it even more after I heard House of Heroes' version of it. Like, that was the reason that, like, put it over the edge for me. And I just love it so much. It's like, oh, I just love the song so much. Like, every time I hear it, I'm like, oh. And then I hear the House of Heroes version, and I'm like, yes, Tim. But my other favorite song is Between You and Me, which I feel like I've said on this channel before. Like, there's songs in the review we did with my dad.
Yeah.
That's what I said. Because I just like songs like that. I think it's an interesting kind of like concept to write a song about. And it's like very scriptural, but it's also just like, just between you and me, let's like be friends and not fight. And I just love it.
My thoughts on this album, I think it's an awesome album, start to finish. And I think what's even more so cool is that all the doors that are open for other people. That way I can stop for a second and people being like, all right, you've done enough praising DC Talk or whatever. But it's cool for me to see like how bands like Audio Adrenaline and like Newsboys, now they were able to get like their foot in the door. Even people talk about, you look at like the Dove Awards and all, how you had all these people that you had the Michael W. Smith. That was, all right, if you want to be successful, that's the path you need to follow. And then these people show up and they're like, what's Jesus Freak? What is that? I think that's the legacy, is that it's an awesome album, but it's more so how it now opened the door for people to be able to bring their own style into there without just being shut down and saying, nope, that's not Christian because it's too much guitar, too much rap, too much whatever. And I think that's the real legacy of the album, is that it changed, like you've said, like it changed the whole
Defined a
the
generation.
game. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my overall review is that it defined a generation. And it's amazing, and it makes me think of Rock Band, because we bought it especially to play Jesus Freak. And it makes me think of my dad, which is great. And it just makes me happy. It makes me think of what is good with Christian music. And hopefully we continue to take notes from old DC Talk.
All right, well, there you go. That's been our review of Jesus Freak by DC Talk. Make sure you let us know in the comments, do you agree? Do you love this album? Or do you hate this album?
If you hate this album, you can leave.
There's a couple people that I've seen that they say, nope, this is overrated. If you're one of those people, Miranda may not want to hear your view, but I would love to hear your view. Let us know why this is not. But I will challenge you that if this is not the album that it says it is, give me the album that defined
a generation.
I think there's arguments that could be made that other people maybe like.
All right,
maybe DC Talk knocked on the door.
But what is it called? Jesus Freak Hideout.
Maybe it's Supernatural. Their second album, people are like, nope, that's the real one. Just don't tag Miranda in your comments. Hopefully I get to them first and be like, oh, that's a solid argument you've raised. Not just, you're blocked from all of Christian music.
Yeah.
So saith Miranda. But yeah, make sure you give this video a like. Make sure you check out all the other content on this wonderful YouTube channel or this Facebook page, wherever you are. I don't know why I'm looking around. I'm like, am I on Facebook? Is this Twitter? Is there a bird or is there a giant blue F somewhere? But yeah, if there's an album out there you want to see us review, let us know.
Yes.
As always, it's been a pleasure having you here. My name is Brandon.
I'm Miranda.
We'll see you on the flippity flip.